Welcome everyone to today's CSIA webinar series. My name is Colin Hammond and I will be your host today. For those of you who are unfamiliar with CSIA, we are a global nonprofit professional association with over 500 member companies in 40 countries. Our mission is to advance the practice of control system integration to benefit our members and their clients. Our vision is to ensure that manufacturing and process industries everywhere have access to low risk, safe, and successful application of automation technology. CSIA membership offers members access to resources needed to attain and exceed business goals. To highlight just a few of our many member benefits, the CSIA Best Practices Manual guides control system integration companies in the setup and running of a solid company. CSIA's business insurance program offers members an excellent insurance program for business owners, subcontractors, and more. The program includes members from all over the world enjoying the peace of mind that comes with CSIA insurance. Clients in all industries are now seeking integrators with a CSIA certification alongside ISO. They recognize CSIA certified integrators' commitment to industry standards and business acumen. As a result, being certified can shorten the sales cycle. CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange is the premier automation guide featuring system integrators and suppliers who provide industrial, manufacturing, and process automation solutions. For integrators and suppliers, it's a place to market their expertise. Clients will find white papers, case studies, capabilities, contact information, and engage in conversation directly with CSIA members. And please be sure to follow CSIA's online events calendar for all upcoming webinars. You won't want to miss these opportunities to learn from the comfort of your own office or home. And for more information about CSIA, please visit our website or contact us at info@staff.controlassist.org or 847-686-2245. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to our presenters. We have Jose Rivera and Steve Mustard. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome, everybody. I would like to pass the mic directly to Steve to get going. This is a very interesting presentation on critical mission certification. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you, Colin, for the introduction. I thank you, everyone else, for joining today. I hope that this discussion will be interesting for you. I hope that's something that you may not already be familiar with, that you would like to hear more about. First of all, Jose, can you confirm you can see my slides?
I can see your slides perfectly. Okay. So
Thank
here's
you.
Maybe what you want to do, because what I see is like your current slide and the next slide. So I think that what you can do is put it in presenter mode.
Yeah. No, this is, here you go. That's it. Okay, that should be correct now.
Perfect.
Thank you. All right, well, again, welcome everyone. I'm going to talk to you today about a certification called Certified Mission Critical Professional, which you may not be familiar with, but I think given what I know about CSIA members, I think it will be very interesting to you, and I'm going to describe it in a bit more detail now. So wanted to start by introducing myself briefly and also the Mission Critical Global Alliance. So I am a 30-year engineer in process control and real-time systems industries, and licensed professional engineer in Kansas and Texas. And excuse me, sorry. And I spent the last 10 or 15 years focusing particularly on cybersecurity of industrial control systems, which is one of the issues that everyone these days who has control systems is concerned about. Mission Critical Global Alliance is a very new non-profit organization, and their mission is to be a trusted resource for businesses and government and industry to assist in securing operational technology that's used in mission critical systems, and so very much relevant to CSIA members and what they do. So certified mission critical professional, why do we need another certification? And why is this one important? So what I'm showing here is that I'm sure you're all familiar that there are 16 critical infrastructure sectors defined by the Department of Homeland Security for the US. And all of the work that CSIA members do, I'm certain will fit into one or more of those sectors. And those sectors, of course, because they are critical infrastructure, the systems that are implemented there, the failure of those systems can cause a serious concern for us in terms of the critical operation of the nation, and that's why they're identified as such. And so anyone who works in those, it's important that they have the right skills and knowledge in order to be able to either design, implement, or maintain or operate those systems, if we are to make sure that they're reliable and safe and operating 24/7, 365. So I've got this picture here, which I created to try and highlight to people how cybersecurity incidents especially can result in a facility. So at the far side on the right, you've got a whole series of incidents that you can have. There's a purple colored one, which is about data breach. And when we talk about cybersecurity, data breach is definitely an important concern for many companies. Perhaps less so for some of our mission critical organizations where the storage of personal data or financial data is not a major part of their business, but it's still relevant. But the green ones are the ones that we are generally most concerned about as CSIA members. Things like loss of production, regulatory impacts, which could be as a result of failure to comply with regulations or failure to meet requirements, and then things like harm to the environment, equipment damage, and even loss of life and injury. And we all know that the processes and the systems that we are monitoring and controlling with our control systems have the potential to have these kind of catastrophic consequences, and cybersecurity incidents is really just one way that we can have a result of those catastrophic consequences. But the chain that I'm showing here, I try to highlight that those incidents that happen in the facility begin right at the very start with people who are designing software and hardware that's put together with processes, development processes and testing processes to make systems and products. And then those systems and products are then introduced into facilities, and people operate those facilities and following procedures again as well. And so at each stage in that chain, if you have people who aren't fully competent, fully trained, fully prepared to do their job, you can introduce small problems, and those small problems can perpetuate through the chain till eventually they can cause a serious problem at a facility. One of the reasons why we have this situation today is that we all know that the people who worked in these facilities and worked in implementing these systems, a lot of them have learned how to design systems with reliability and integrity in mind over many, many years, and in fact decades in many cases for people. A lot of this information wasn't captured in standards and guidance. It was learned as systems were developed, and that information was passed down through generations of people as new people have come on board through on-the-job training and such like. Unfortunately, as we all know, a lot of that experience is disappearing as people retire, and it isn't necessarily being replaced by the same level of experience, obviously, because we're having new people come in who haven't spent 20 or 30 years in these organizations and in these businesses. And so that is a big challenge. And then we put together with that the fact that technology is changing considerably. So if you look today at my word cloud here, these are words and phrases that would come up today when you talk about process control systems. It's hugely diverse and complex, the type of and scale of information that someone needs to know either to implement a system or manage or maintain a system. So it's really very difficult to learn everything that you need to do in order to be competent. So where do you go? A lot of people say, well, let's go to the internet. The internet is the source of all information, so that's good. And of course, if you go to the internet and you ask a simple question like, what's the answer to, for instance, this puzzle here, you'll get a very diverse range of answers. And not only will you get a diverse range of answers, you'll get people absolutely adamant that their answer is correct, even though factually it isn't. And so you can't rely on going to the internet and asking people for answers to questions if you're working in the mission critical environment. But unfortunately, a lot of people are dependent on that. And so I just picked this example. This is from a LinkedIn group talking about instrumentation and control. And this is a person asking a genuine question about how they could get experience to work in the automation field. And the answer is, you know, basically do everything that your supervisor says, which is maybe okay as long as your supervisor knows what they're doing. And then also, if you're not sure, check with Google, which of course is nonsense. But I mean, unfortunately, that's what a lot of people who work in our sector, in our sectors, are required to do now, because there's so much they need to know. And this is another example of the challenge which we have for new people, especially coming into our sphere of work, which is being mentored by people. As I said, a lot of the mentoring that used to be available for people is disappearing now as people retire. And so in this example, this is a real example from someone who was joining a company, like possibly a CSIA member, and learning the hard way, learning, you know, in at the deep end about how to develop, in this case, an HMI. And this person had no prior experience in that. And essentially what they're saying is that their supervisor basically said, here's the manuals, go off in the corner and work it out yourself, and then come back to me if you get stuck. Now, kudos to that person that they succeeded, they developed something and they learned a lot in that process. My only concern would be, how do we know that that person learned the right things, all the correct things, and will they perpetuate the right things, or will they perpetuate wrong things that they were unaware that were wrong because there was little guidance? So just because you can get something to work doesn't mean it is the correct way to do it, doesn't mean it's the secure way to do it, doesn't mean it's the best reliable way to do it. And so there's a lot of instruction that needs to be provided to people, when they, especially when they start their career in this space, so that they can build on that secure foundation and develop their skills as they go along. And of course, many examples of what happens when people aren't fully competent in doing their job. There's a couple of examples there, mainly from the data center world, but it's equally applicable to some of the stuff we see in the industrial space. So you're talking about people who work in data centers for Amazon Web Services, for instance, or British Airways, and they're doing the wrong thing, either because they don't have the right procedures to follow, or they haven't been trained in the right procedures, or they don't understand how to follow the right procedures, or they don't understand the basics of risk assessment and basics of operating procedures. And so they do the wrong thing. And in some cases, that may not be catastrophic, but in some cases it can be very devastating to an organization if you just make a simple mistake like disconnect the wrong power supply. And the picture in the middle with all the different colored circles is something from a 2018 report by IBM, which talks about the causes of cybersecurity incidents, and the colors and size of the circles indicates the type of cause, the size of it being the number of them. And you can see that the most significant cause of cybersecurity incidents is something they've classified as misconfiguration. So basically just anything unintentional, accidental, not deliberate attack by outsiders, by nation states or organized crime, but just by people in the organization making mistakes. And that again all comes down to a lack of competence, a lack of good structured instruction and reliable way to verify that people have the right skills and knowledge. So CMCP is really all about trying to address that problem. How do you take a person who may be just starting in our industry, and you need to make sure that that person has all the basic grounding they need in order to do their job. Not necessarily every detail of everything, but just all the really critical, important things that you need to know in order to start on day one and not make stupid mistakes and cause serious problems for your clients. So this certification began as a grant from the US Department of Labor through a consortium of community colleges led by Cleveland Community College in North Carolina. And they developed a 2-year syllabus to take at community colleges that would cover all of the instruction that would be needed for someone to have the basic skills in order to work in a mission critical environment. And then ISA, the International Society of Automation, worked in that consortium to develop an exam which could be taken independently and certify that the person had demonstrated that skills and knowledge in order to get a certification called Certified Mission Critical Professional. And as you can see, that program was supported by a lot of major industrial players. They recognize the importance of this kind of certification for their people, and they recognize the benefit to them if they can get people certified in that place. So the target audience is very much entry-level people. It's very much someone who's either taken one of those 2-year degrees or a similar type of 2-year degree in instrumentation and control, for instance. They might have 2 years of experience in mission critical space and not have got formal instruction, but that can classify equally in terms of the basic grounding going into this exam. And the idea is to basically assess independently that someone has that skills and knowledge in order to get that certification. And so the areas that the certification covers is 7 main areas. We have the concepts, what is a mission critical system and why is it important? Why is it different from other systems? The standards, what standards do folk who are working in this space need to be aware of? Again, not necessarily in great depth, but just know that those standards are out there, know that they might need to go to them in order to validate something. Very important aspects, the technology. I mentioned earlier, there's a huge range of technology that's involved in control systems these days. And so there's a big focus in that area. And of course, especially a big focus on the cyber security of that technology in that section. Operations, another big area. So understanding when you work in a mission critical environment, you're going to have things like standard operating procedures, you're going to have lockout, tagout procedures, you're going to have all kinds of things that you have to do and you have to follow with rigor in order to work safely and securely in a mission critical environment. Then you have safety and physical security. Again, another distinction between what we do and what some other people in, say, the IT world might do, where we're working in environments where there's hazards to people, electrical hazards, fire hazards, and so on. So PPE, physical security, all very important. And then risk management, again, another area that is really critical. We're not expecting people at this level to be able to do detailed risk analysis necessarily, but we need them to understand what risk analysis is, why it's important, and why you do it before you do anything. And then finally, really important, emergency response, because although many organizations will have emergency response procedures in place for things like fire or flood, hurricanes, they may not, and in fact, in my experience, very few will have similar procedures in place for cybersecurity incidents, despite the fact that that's not uncommon these days. And the emergency response section is all about, again, people understanding the importance of planning for a potential catastrophe, whether it be cybersecurity or not, and how you would structure one of those and how you would follow one of those. Not necessarily so they can implement it, but just know that there should be one in place and they need to prepare for it. Certifications for individuals, there's a lot of them, and I've tried to show here that they fit into different sectors. So you've got a lot in IT security, especially in the cybersecurity space. You've got things to do with ethical hacking, and you've got CISSP, the Certified Information Security Professional, for instance. Then in the operations space, ISA has certifications for control system technicians, so CCST, Certified Control System Technician, 3 levels for that. And then CAP, Certified Automation Professional, which is obviously more on the engineer side. And then in the OT security, you have some certifications as well. ISA has some certificate programs for their training in cybersecurity. And then there's a global industrial cybersecurity professional certification that was developed by mostly folk in the oil and gas industry, but it's quite widely adopted elsewhere now. And the CMCP sits right in the center of all of those certifications. The intention is it's not as deep as each one of those that I've just described, but it's as broad as all of them together. So the idea is to bring all of that knowledge from the IT side from security, the OT side from security, and then also the OT operations, and bring all of that together into one certification so that you can have someone to join your organization or begin their journey with you and have a good grounding in everything that they need to know in order to do a good job. There is a sister certification called CMCO, Certified Mission Critical Operator, and that, as you can see, is slightly more tilted towards the IT side of all of that intersection, but it's still very much bringing together the different parts and then just providing a grounding in all of that rather than in detail. So the idea would be you would have people who would all have the basic CMCP certification, and then depending on their career path, they're going to go in one direction or another and get more instruction and more training and more certification in a particular area to specialize in something. So if we go back to that risk chain, I hope you can see that those different sections of the certification overlap nicely on the different areas of the risk chain, so that if you have someone who's got the certification, like anything, there's no guarantee that you're not going to have consequences or problems as a result of something going wrong, but the likelihood of that is mitigated significantly by having competent people who've got the basic grounding in all of those different parts of the risk chain. So system integrators, as Colin mentioned earlier, with the CSIA certification, how that is an important differentiator for you when you go to customers. It's very much demanded by customers that you have that certification because it provides some credibility that you are ready, willing and able to do the job correctly, and that's important for end users. Just the same that having your people with CMCP can provide the same type of differentiator for you between you and your competitors. You know, in terms of reputation, I mean, not only are you demonstrating that you have competency in your organization, but you're also demonstrating that your organization believes that it's important to have people who are certified and competent in their job, and they invest in those people to make sure that they can do a good job. And it's not just about keeping safe and secure, but it's also about working efficiently, reliably, getting the job done probably quicker, but also at lower cost, because you've got people who are better trained, who are more competent. And as a result, your people will be more motivated because they've got some certification that they regard themselves as important, and they look to your organization to see that you're investing in their time and their skills and knowledge. And it's going to hopefully encourage them to keep learning, which you need in order to keep your business moving forward and as things continue to change. So I'm going to sum up by the really great quote that is very relevant here from Henry Ford that said the only thing worse than training your employees and having them leave is not training them and having them stay. And I think that sums up quite nicely that the challenge that you all have, which is, you know, that just because someone can do something and it sort of works doesn't necessarily mean it's done correctly, doesn't mean that you're not going to have problems later with your customers, and doesn't mean that you couldn't do it more efficiently and better if you had better trained people. So I hope that was interesting. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to give time if people had questions about the certification and how it might help. I've also got here contact details for some folk if you want to contact them direct to talk more about how you would get your people trained and certified. And at that point, I'll pause and see if there's anyone who has any questions.
Steve, there is a question in the chat.
Okay, go ahead, Jose.
Can you see it? It says, would it make sense to pursue CMCP certification if I already have the ISA, CAP, Certified Automation Professional, and other related certifications?
Well, it's interesting because, yeah, if you look at the hierarchy or the progression, logically the CMCP does come before those. However, I would say that what I think helps with having CMCP is that, I mean, all of that is kind of built into CCST and CAP and such like, but it's looking at it from a slightly different perspective, and I think it does no harm, and it's a positive thing to be able to point to people and say, not only have I got these certifications, but I've also demonstrated competency in basic risk assessment and operations and technology and such like, and I think that just helps. There's no question that if you've got those certifications already, that you'd be able to take the exam with limited study and pass it, so that's a good thing. I have the certification as well as CAP and GICSP and various others, because I think it's good to have them to demonstrate that I've got the broad range of skills and knowledge, not just some particular areas.
I have a question, and that is related to, let's say that you have individuals that you are interested in specializing in this mission critical area. So I understand the part about obtaining the certification, but where would you recommend they go to acquire the knowledge? You know, like to get the training, you know, what would be your experience, your recommendation, all before taking the test?
Yeah. So it's something that right now there is no formal training program for someone to take this exam. There is the study guide, which I showed here, and if you've got experience already in the mission critical space, reading the study guide, taking a look at the sample questions, I would say you stand a very good chance of being able to pass the exam without any additional study. It is an entry level, and so if you've got someone who really is coming from, say, a non-mission critical role, or coming right out of college without any training in instrumentation and control and such like, then they probably would benefit from taking some formal instruction. And ISA, I know, has a number of boot camp type classes that cover some of the basics, and that would probably, combined with the study guide, would again be enough to get someone through. Because yeah, we're not looking for people who are going to be able to pass very advanced exam questions here like you would into CAP or GICSP. A lot of it's common sense, but a lot of it is really about proving that people understand the importance of all of those areas that I've got on the screen there, that they know they exist, they know why they exist, and they know enough to be able to learn more about it as they start their job. So I think most people should be able to do reasonably well, but I think I know the MCGA, Mission Critical Global Alliance, and Global Skills Exchange are interested in developing formal training courses, maybe in class, maybe online, maybe a combination. And I think that will come sometime in the near future, probably in the next 12 months. And so I think that will be available for people if they're really concerned that they don't feel confident enough to take the exam and they want to get some formal instruction.
Okay, thank you. There is another question, which is, how do I get a copy of the study guide, which has been shown here on the slide that you have?
There's a few ways. There's a hard copy book, which is available from ISA's bookstore and also Amazon. And there's also an electronic version of it, which is available. There is a package that's available for people who want to take the exam. And the package includes an electronic copy of the study guide. So I guess we could, Jose, probably provide you with some links to those things. And maybe you can send them out to the attendees afterwards, and then they can check those out if they want to look at one or more of the different routes to do that.
Happy to do so. So then let me also ask you one question. So in a typical, let's say, refinery of process plants where you have shutdown systems, emergency shutdown systems, would this be an area covered in this mission critical operations?
Yeah, so in the technology side of in the section, it talks about basic process control, it talks about alarm management, it talks about safety shutdown systems. So all of those are mentioned, again, not in great detail because it's not the intention, but it's, again, to make people aware, for instance, that a facility like you talk about would have many layers of protection that need to be in place in order to operate safely. And all of those interact in some way, and it's important to maintain them all and to be able to verify that they're all operational. And so the combination of the technology and then the operation side and the safety side, understanding all of those things, and then the risk assessment as well. You know, what are our risks to those layers of protection, and how do we mitigate those risks? All of those things are covered in the certification.
Okay, very good. In my past, I was a product manager for instrumentation, and I had and I'm dating myself, but this was quite a while ago, that I had requests by special end users, you know, asking me for probabilities of failure for them to load into their Markov models, you know, to determine probabilities of failure for their plant. Right. And that's when I personally got interested in this whole topic, you know, like in parallel, right?
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I now and then get to see on the news refineries or chemical plants going up in smokes. There was one this week in India that happened December 5th, I think, which, I mean, it's just a reminder that these are really critical systems. You know, yep. Some of them, when they fail in a dramatic way, you know, with yep. implications for populations around it. Other times it may be just cyber, but just the same way it impacts a lot of people.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because I think what has happened in the last 10 years or so is that the convergence of the technologies, you know, the IT world and the operational technology world has meant that we've had more people from the IT world come in and say, well, you know, what you've got there is just some IT equipment, which is very similar to our IT equipment. So I'll manage the security of those. And, you know, I understand network security, I understand data security and such like, so I can manage that. But as you just pointed out there, the consequences of failure of the operational technology is very different, much more significant. And when you do a risk assessment, and when you do a LOPA, when you do any of those kind of things, you don't look at their systems as such. You look at their process failure. You look at what happens when the process fails and the causes of that process to fail, rather than the technology particularly. And when you understand that it's all about the process failing, then you understand the severity, the potential for a failure, and then you understand how it's much more important to manage these systems in a different way from what the IT folk would want you to do. So there are some things we can learn from those IT folk about how to manage security, how to monitor networks and such like, but it's not all about IT security. It's a very different subject, and it's and it's hard sometimes for people to grasp that, especially if all they see is a bunch of Windows machines and they say, well, yeah, I can manage that, no problem. But it is a different challenge, and that's why those areas that you can see on the screen, technology is just one of them. The other ones are equally valid and equally important for a certification like this.
Very good. So I want to thank you very much. And I also want to make the following comment. Mike Marlowe and Brian, they presented to the board a few months ago, and the board was very interested, and they were very inquisitive when it comes to the landscape of certifications around critical mission. And you made a very powerful slide in your presentation, putting it all together. That was like, I think, a very good explanation. It's not the circles.
Oh yeah, it is one, yeah, sorry. This one.
That one, which I think is very good. There are a lot of different certifications, and it all makes sense for have all this diversity in certifications, because they're trying to accomplish something slightly different. So thank you very much. This was a very interesting, an actual question from the board. The other one that I had was about acquiring the knowledge. So you provided some input, but I think that there's still opportunity, to develop more, to help develop those new resources that get interested in this. I will also say, and I apologize that the last time we tried to have this webinar, we had issues and we could not deliver. And today we had issues getting it started very early on. I was sweating it, but I tell you that, Steve, you have the perfect temper to be a missions critical engineer, because you kept calm, and just hearing you calmed me down. So I want to thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, that's the experience, right? Yeah.
All right. And then here's actually one last question that seemed to have made its way through, and it reads like this. Has there been interest from the hyperscalers and other DC companies? Don't know what hyperscalers are.
I'm not sure the context, but yeah. I mean, I don't think it's explicitly yet, but I mean, I think the vendors, like you were talking about system integrators here, but vendors, as I showed in that risk chain, everyone has a part to play in this, and everyone needs to have competent certified people throughout, because it's no good just you guys being competent and certified working with products that are developed by people who don't have the same skills and knowledge, right? Because you're now having to maybe add on to their products security and also reliability stuff that shouldn't necessarily need to be there in order to make it work reliably. So everybody has a part to play. And I think we're only in the early days of the certification, but we need to get the message out to everybody in this chain, from initial designers all the way through to the people at the front line operating this equipment, that everyone needs to have skills and knowledge in all of these 7 areas if they're going to be able to do this properly. So I think it's going to come, and hopefully we're on our path of educating people about the availability of this. And I think once they hear about it, then I think they will be very interested.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes. I'm seeing some problems here. Zoom not responding. So from my end, I want to close this down. I really appreciate your patience to insist on a second time. I got a lot of this, even though I had seen this presentation before. By you going through it again, I got more out of it. So I hope it was the same for those in attendance. We have recorded this event, and we will be posting it where we post all the other events. So thank you very much. I wish everybody good recovery here during the happy holidays that we have and the new year. And it was a crazy year, this one. Recharge batteries and phase 21 with a new set of a battery load. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
All right.
Stay safe.
Thanks, gentlemen.